to the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater, who is not here today. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post our videos. Latest video is a review of Vertigo, which is a VR series. Review of the entire VR series. So all 3 games. Go check it out. Working on a few new projects right now. If you follow us on Patreon, you can get updates on the project. And the project that I'm currently working on right now is a bit longer. And I have big news. I'm going to be reading a book for this project.
Is it a Halo book?
No. Damn it. No. Big project. So go follow us on Patreon for more details. Richard, what are you doing?
I got Gaming Discourse FM.
Okay, now we should announce that you're going to be changing the name.
I might. Yeah,
so
yeah. Some point.
You're going to go west, young man, and
yes,
find land of your own.
We're still going to be connected.
Sure.
I mean,
I'm not fine. We're not splitting up.
No. We're still we're still kicking it.
But once you have your thing set up, we'll still plug it and everything.
Oh yeah,
so knows where
for
to find
sure.
you and whatnot. But for now, go to Gaming Discourse.
GamingDiscourse.com or .fm. Oh my God, Gaming Discourse FM on YouTube, where we post a weekly radio show about some of our favorite video games.
Yeah, video game music.
Just had a huge Halloween month. And I think this next week is going to be Games of the Year.
Oh, wow.
Not Game of the Year. Like it's just like an amalgamation of like, these are some of the best games. And there's a lot. I checked out some of those lists.
Yes.
And I'm like, God, Jesus, there are some that I have forgotten about and I haven't even gotten to yet. So.
Okay. All right. Connor's not here, so I'll be running the board. Apologies in advance. And I've got the soundboard here, which means I can throw in
Xbox.
That one.
May the
I wish we could use
you.
Jim Rome more often.
Oh man, Jim Rome. Yeah.
But we don't get around to it. This one I always want to play.
The Little Me.
It's not our joke, but anyway. Okay,
We'll get to it.
So I've been playing a lot of Alan Wake 2.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I saw you playing a little bit of it.
Very tiny bit.
So I kind of want to get your thoughts on what you've played so far.
I don't know how good of thoughts I have because I have only gotten to the first boss fight, quote unquote.
Okay. Alrighty.
In the forest, we'll say that.
Yeah.
I miss. So you play as, there's 2 different characters now. There's 2 main characters. There's Saga and Anderson, right? Saga Anderson.
Yep, Saga Anderson.
We seem to be focusing on more. And then, of course, there's Alan who comes later. But in Alan Wake 1, one thing I absolutely loved about the game, and the same with Max Payne and Max Payne 3, which Remedy did not do, but Rockstar did, was that there was always a dialogue happening with the game. And with Alan Wake 1, we had Alan consistently speaking to himself. Mm-hmm. That's kind of been replaced mostly with your sidekick Casey, who is a huge I'm a huge fan of. I really like Alex Casey, and then Saga will speak to herself sometimes, but it's not as frequent as Alan speaks in the first game. So that is something that's kind of missing, but I don't think it's essential for the experience. I am taken off guard a lot by we'll call it psychosis parts, and I'm like, because they happen at infrequent times. They're used very well, as I'll say that. So so far I'm greatly enjoying the vibe, and I've had a moment. I'm not gonna say specifically because it'll be spoiler, but we'll probably talk about it after. But I had a moment where I was kind of like on my couch, playing kind of like this, and there was a conversation happening, and at the end of the conversation I kind of just went like excuse me. So it's so far it's really, really cool, and I just wish I could speak more about it, but I can't at the moment.
Okay.
But
I'll say this: if you're enjoying it this far in,
yeah,
because the combat can be a little awkward, kind of. At least in my opinion, it was.
The dodging's weird.
Less
Dodge backward
responsive than Yeah.
The first game, in my
Dodge
opinion.
backward.
Dodge backward.
If you dodge to like the left or right, you can still get hit.
Yeah.
But if you dodge backward, enemies can't reach you.
Okay.
So that's what I have learned, is just to
Great
dodge
tip.
backwards.
Great tip.
Now you can't always dodge backward because there may be a wall
Of course,
or something.
a wall, yeah.
So, but what I gained pretty quick, because I was trying to like dodge to the left or right. What I gained pretty quickly was just to dodge backward, and then as soon as you're out of the dodge animation, keep shooting or something like that. Okay, I won't spoil anything obviously either, but if you miss the more traditional, if you miss playing as Alan Wake and sort of how they set that up in Alan Wake and then All American Nightmare, you will get a lot of that.
Yeah.
As you play
as you get progressively further.
once you go further and you start playing as actual Alan Wake. But I just can't, because I don't know if I've ever played a sequel to a game that I don't know. It's almost like the difference between Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 3. It's almost completely different games.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason they're that way is because it's a different company. It's 20 years later, whatever. Yes. But with Remedy, they approached Alan Wake 2 just from a completely different perspective. And they created something that I think is one of the more unique horror games I've ever played. There's a little bit of Resident Evil. You've got safe rooms. You've got health, ammo, that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of Silent Hill. The game is very quiet, and a lot of the time you're just walking around, and it's just you and the ambience. They took some... I cannot wait for you to see some of the stuff in this game, because they took some massive creative risks with just how ridiculous some of this stuff gets. And I think it all works. I think it works really well. We talked about this. Both of us are big fans of Control.
Yes, right? Very big.
And fans of Remedy, really. We've never talked about Max Payne.
No,
I only played the first one. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I never played 2. 3 was Rockstar, right?
3 was Rockstar, yes.
Yeah.
Which I felt was very good.
Okay.
As a continuation. And just as a quick anecdote, I do remember we streamed E3 when they announced Control.
Oh, okay.
And I remember when they showed Jesse hitting the ground and the way that the effects happen, I immediately was like, this is a Remedy game. And I was like, well, so yes, I'm a big fan of Remedy's games. Yes, very much so.
But they I remember talking to you about, clearly they have like a David Lynchian inspiration, right? And that was apparent with Twin Peaks, the connections between Twin Peaks and Alan Wake. And then in Control, you had similar styles where it's like horror but funny at the same time. Lots of metaphor, lots of strange surrealism. But with Control, they sort of found their own voice. It wasn't just like, we made our own version of Twin Peaks.
Yes.
With Control, it was like they were able to, I think, branch out. And they may have done this with Max Payne, I don't remember. But they sort of were able to branch out and like do their own thing that was less like somebody saying, we're in the style of Twin Peaks, and more like it's just an artistic branch off.
Right.
And then the janitor in Control was literally David Lynch.
Yes, he was.
he didn't sound like him, but he had the same hair. It basically looked just like him. With Alan Wake 2, they did that again, where you can see the inspiration. You can see things that they took from like other horror and other creative endeavors and whatnot. But at the same time, the experience, I think, is really unique. It is completely unpredictable. And I said this last week, there's no fourth wall. The game's it's just batshit crazy. It doesn't matter. And that's what makes it so exciting, because but it's not silly about it.
You're right.
Like Metal Gear Solid breaks the fourth wall. Other famous games break the fourth wall, but they're like silly about it in some ways. Alan Wake 2 really isn't silly about it, which is really interesting. But yeah, that boss fight I really liked. There's something happening during that boss fight that there's a theme in the game that you don't realize until later on, that how often you're doing something. and you're like, oh, what the hell? That's totally true. The build up to that boss fight, get ready, because boss fights later on, they just wring the tension out of you. And it's just build up and tension and tension. And it gets to the point where it's like, there's that scene in Jurassic Park 2. Well, it's because he has a snake in him. You know that scene where they run into the waterfall and there's that guy that has snake. He's like, oh, snake. He runs out and he gets eaten by the T-Rex. Okay, it's like that, but instead of having a snake, you just lose your composure because it's just creepy and it just keeps layering on. And by the end, you're just like, I don't care. Just put me in the boss fight. Just put me in the boss fight, please, because it just keeps layering on the creepiness and like the tension. And I love it. I think some people may think it's redundant or boring or goes on too long. But like, I've never played a game where they allowed the tension to ring out like that, and they do it in creative ways, which is why for me it's been exciting and thrilling and terrifying. The one big thing that I'll say is the game does rely a lot on jump scares, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Right.
I think a good placed jump scare is amazing. One of my favorite horror games of all time, Fear, has like 2 or 3 of the best jump scares, like these legendary jump scares. You take a ladder, you turn around as you're going down the ladder, Alma appears.
Right there.
You go through an AC duct and like a pipe bursts, and then through the gas, like Alma comes bear crawling at you, like a couple jump scares that are really awesome. So I think when they're used correctly, they can be terrifying and whatnot. I think Alan Wake 2 does it a little too much, and it gets a little obnoxious, but not anything where it's like it made me want to stop playing. But I could totally see people not enjoying that. And yeah, you this is, I don't know if this is a spoiler, because it's not really spoiling anything, but I'll just say, if you hadn't played Control before this, there'd be a lot of stuff where it's like, what is this? Mm-hmm. What does this word mean? What's going on?
Lots of acronyms.
And so they really wrapped the control, because I don't think that was planned with the first Alan Wake. I think the first Alan Wake was like, let's do this. And then they made Control, and now they're sort of retroactively fitting Alan Wake into their this like universe, which I have mixed feelings about. Because on one hand, I think horror and mystery and surrealism is obviously best because oftentimes there's no explanation. Or the explanation is ambiguous, right? Part of the creepiness is discussing, figuring it out. You know, things are sometimes creepy, I don't know, for no reason. Not everything that happens in Twin Peaks, I think, has like a definitive answer or some of it's metaphorical, whatever. I think one thing that may bother some people, and bothers me a little bit, is that they do go a little, if you read like the notes around, they do sort of explain a lot of things, which it's like, okay, but at the same time, I kind of like
the intrigue
when a game throws you a curveball and you're not sure what's real anymore. That's the kind of stuff I love, and Alan Wake 2 does that just all the freaking time. But there's one scene that I cannot wait for you to see, because it has to do with Alex Casey.
Okay.
Because, so let's just say it. Something's up with Alex Casey.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's played by Sam Lake.
Yes.
Or that's the
played the visual character model, Sam Lake. His voice actor is Max Payne.
And his name is Alex Casey, which was the detective from the novels that Alan Wake wrote before the events of the first game. So Remedy is like literally writing a character and then like looking into the screen and like winking at you. And this goes on and on to the point, but oh my God, I just can't wait for you to see some of this stuff. One thing I would recommend, so you can swap between Saga's story and Alan's story. They are intertwined, but you can do, like, as far as I understand, you can do one, like you can go through Saga's entire story, and then you can go through Wake's entire story.
Oh, okay.
Or you can go back and forth and alternate.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't beat the game yet. I'm close. I haven't finished it, but I've been going back and forth, like every time you finish like a chapter or a major event, swapping between, and that has actually been really freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also it may have made the story somewhat easier to guess because you could kind of see something happening as it was happening that the characters didn't realize. So that's what I would recommend doing. And also because each character plays a little bit differently. I wish I could think of it. Like, not massively differently, but like, for example, the enemies that you fight as Saga.
Yeah.
The enemies that you'll fight as Alan Wake work a little bit differently.
Okay.
Alan Wake like can carry, I think he can carry like 4 flares, while Saga can only carry 2. He has different weapons. Saga has different weapons. So if you alternate it, it may keep things from getting stale because combat's not that. There's not a whole lot to it.
Yeah.
So if you go back and forth, kind of keeps things fresh. Saga's story is very interesting. Wake's story, I just can't wait for you to see it. I can't wait. Okay, that's all I'll say. And is there anything else? Is there any other games you want to discuss?
Playing more Spider-Man 2. I got to play a little more of that, and I did get to a point to where I had gone over the like hump of getting the beginning stuff out of the way for setting up the rest of the story. And I got that hook, and so now I'm very excited to continue playing the game. I do think they had a very good way to include a lot of the Spider-Man rogue gallery without you having to fight them.
Okay.
In the essence of Kraven. Kraven is the main villain of the game, and Kraven's thing is hunting, and he hunts for sport. And so he's come to New York to hunt down not just Spider-Man, but all of Spider-Man's villains. But some villains aren't necessarily villains anymore, or some have like reformed and stuff like that. So
interesting. Okay.
So you have to interact with these characters as Spider-Man, but also like maybe try to protect them from Kraven, or or just kind of see what they're up to. And it's neat to see these characters and at least have some sort of interaction with them, because that's a problem with something like Batman, with something like any superhero. Fans want to see all of these characters all together, and if they don't, they kind of get mad about it or whatnot. But I think this was a good alternative to having a bunch of villains in the game, but not necessarily having to fight them.
Is it anything like because like Arkham City did that, where there was a ton of villains out there, but a lot of your encounters were like 1 or 2 really short quest lines, or something like that. Like you would run into like, I forget, there was the Mad Hatter. And it was like 2 or 3 quests or whatever. Is it kind of like that, where some of the villains are...
So no, not necessarily. Some of the villains that you encounter have something to do with the main story. They don't have any larger effect on it. It's just like kind of like, oh, hey, wow, I remember you. Like Spider-Man villain Tombstone, like he is now like, because he's kind of a mechanic, he's now running like a go-kart rink.
Oh, okay.
And so he's there to fix the cars and stuff. But he's getting hunted by Kraven. But after, like, let's say Mysterio, like if you encounter Mysterio, you may not fight him. I don't know if I have to yet or anything, but you may not fight him. But after you encounter him, at least, or after the mission's over, when you start swinging around the city, it's like, oh, hey, there's Mysterio stuff around here. Like, do little Mysterio things, or like Sandman things.
Okay. So
they have something to do with at least doing something in the world, but they may not have a larger effect on the main story.
Okay. Well, that is a neat way to sort of incorporate different. And Venom is the main villain?
Venom and Kraven are the main villain. Venom hasn't quite shown up yet. The symbiote has.
Sure. Okay.
To good effect as well. They kind of have changed the mythos of like Spider-Man a little bit. But it's working for me, and I'm interested to see what happens. So,
cool.
But yeah,
I kind of enjoy when, I don't know, because superheroes are malleable. So why not? Why not do your own thing? It was Batman Arkham sort of told its own kind of story. So it's like, why not sort of go out there and make your own version?
It's very funny to me when folks get up in arms about how much characters change, but they've been around for so long and have done so many things. You're already used to it in comics. Why not? Why not any other medium? It's fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. So we'll go on to the news as soon as I find. Is it this one? It's not that one. No.
What if I told you
It's not that one.
in this world
Tidbits real quick.
there are bits and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits.
I found it. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. If you watch the video, you'll see that the Stream Deck we have, like the last 3 buttons were just behind my laptop. And I had to like move them and go, oh, we have 3 more buttons there. To find
I didn't even notice that, and I'm right here.
The commercial. Stefanie Joosten spoke about Quiet's outfit. This was an interview with IGN's Ryan Dinsdale. Stefanie Joosten played Quiet, Metal Gear Solid 5, which is coming up on 10 years old now, which is weird to think about.
Yeah, it is very weird to think about.
They spoke about her upcoming studio album. I did not know that she was a musician or a singer, but she is, which is neat. She was asked about Quiet, and she said this, quote, I think video games are a sort of fantasy world you enter, so I definitely respect the choices regarding the Quiet appearance. For instance, being quite revealing, but I also understand the perspective of the people that are not as happy with how she was portrayed. People are looking for more representation, and I really get it. Quiet's outfit is not practical at all. Even with the explanation that was given of her breathing through her skin, of course, there were so many other options you could have gone with. I do agree on that. I got to see the character artwork when we were starting motion capture, and of course my first reaction was, that's a very revealing costume. But I respected it and accepted it. So that's basically my stance. It's fantasy, and I find that acceptable as well, but I do understand having more of a diverse representation in video games for women and all minorities is something I would encourage as well, end quote. I don't know if we've ever discussed
like Quiet in general,
and
or
really Metal Gear Solid. Well, I guess we've talked Metal Gear Solid.
We talked Metal Gear
before.
Solid, yeah.
Yeah, but 5 came out before we started the show.
Yes, yeah.
But anyway, what do you think? Because we've never really talked about that.
No, we never really talked about it, and I've never really thought about it. Sat there and then intrinsically thought about it. Of course, I've seen the discussion throughout all the years about Quiet, and for me, I loved using Quiet. I loved Quiet as a character, and I did love her story mission and whatnot. But that was 10 years ago, and looking back on it, it's kind of okay. Yeah, it is stupid. It is dumb. And then I started thinking, actually, because I did read this article when it came out a couple days ago. I did sit back and I looked at the altering of how Kojima represented his women characters from what we have as the pinnacle of a woman being the boss.
Yeah, right.
And her depiction. We have Ava's depiction, and she was sultry, but there was no doubt in our mind that she was incredibly capable. Then we have Dr. Strangelove and Peace Walker and several other characters besides that. But when we came to Quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5, it was her coolness factor, or her it was forced rather than natural.
Yeah.
I
know what you mean.
Yes, her abilities, her capabilities were forced more than they were natural. Of course, that was at the beginning. We do see it's revealed at the beginning. You do see Quiet as an actual soldier and what she went through. But yeah, coming up with the excuse of why she wears pretty much a string bikini in the battlefield is very weird, considering the type of technology that's also shown with the skulls. Was it? The skulls. Yeah. It's they look like they have breathable plug suits, and it's you could have gone that route, and he did have all of these options, but I also do think that there is pressure from a societal standpoint, from Japan particularly, like at least have something along the lines of being sexual in a game. Because we did have, at least he's spoken about it, you know, one of the main reasons we have Raiden as a character is because a lot of the women players wanted a pretty main character.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
you know, he faltered to that. So, but I'm not going to say that's the whole reason, but I agree with Miss Joosten.
Yeah, I think it's the reaction is not just to her outfit. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the game. First of all, her name is Quiet, and you shush her, right? So her entire character is almost like a joke.
Yes.
Her name is literally Quiet. You can literally shush her. You can shush that woman who starts to sing every now and then. When you're at base,
she hums,
she's
right?
literally kept in a cage. She has men like gawking around her as she showers and stuff. So it's all like very like obviously.
I also forgot about
ridiculous.
all of that. Yeah. Now it's like unlocking like six doors, and I'm like,
shit.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people talk about her costume because her costume is the first noticeable thing about her. But it wasn't just what she wore. It was also like how often she was put in like weird situations. And you brought up Ava and Boss. That's sort of the difference with those characters is those characters weren't treated like that.
No.
And also when you're in the helicopter, because in Metal Gear Solid 5, every time you went out to do a mission, you got in your helicopter, you fly out there, you do the mission. If she's with you, she like poses.
Yeah.
And it's like these like sensual revealing poses. She like leans in front of you and stuff. And it's just awkward and weird.
Yeah.
Like she like puts on a show and you don't know why.
Yeah.
And that's not really her personality because when you first meet her, she wants to kill you.
Yeah.
So her personality is like, she's like mean. She's a predator. She's going to shoot you. She's going to hunt you down. She's going to break your neck. Then you get in the helicopter and it's like, okay, time for a striptease.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I always thought it was strange because it's just such a clearly like out of left field way to treat a character. But you know, we're trotting on like 50 years of critical theory here. So we're not going to be able to give a deeper dive into academia when it comes to critical theory, but like I was thinking about characters that are because I don't think there's anything wrong with being sexualized.
No.
I don't know if that's the correct word. There's nothing wrong with being sexy as a character,
yeah,
right?
Of course not.
Bayonetta is a character that gets brought up all the time, right?
Definitely one of the top ones.
Like a character that she has flipped from, like one point people thought she was overly sexualized, and that's flipped to now the interpretation is like she celebrates her human sexuality and defeats these institutions that want to like suppress that, right? Which I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. I was trying to think of other characters that I thought were like sexy but not over sexualized, I guess. And I think Jadzia Dax in DS9 is like a character that is super sultry, super sexy.
Oh, okay.
But she's always just in her Starfleet uniform, as opposed to a character in a similar case, 7 of 9, Star Trek Voyager.
Star Trek, yeah.
In 7 of 9, she's the character that was once Borg, so played by Jerry Ryan, I think. And she has a super tight suit on, and it's a stupid reason why she wears the suit. And it's clearly there just so she can be gawked at. But the thing that sucks is like she's a brilliant actress. The character's really interesting. So it kind of feels patronizing to have the tight suit on, especially when you look at somebody like Jadzia Dax, who is also sexy, who the characters have crushes on and stuff like that. And she can do all that like seductive sexuality without wearing nothing or without wearing a skin tight suit. I think Ava's a really good example because like the tension between her and Snake is like this great sexual tension. And there's that ridiculous scene where, well, I don't know how ridiculous it. Well, I mean, I guess it's pretty ridiculous where they're sitting.
I can't wait to play it again.
Sitting around a campfire and like Snake has his shirt off and she like unzips and they're totally like casual about it all. Yeah. Snake is literally eating.
He couldn't care less.
Yeah, he's like totally oblivious to the whole thing.
No, it's funny because I'm pretty certain there's a part where he's eating and like she like peers over and he's just kind of like Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, and Ava's example is interesting as well, because the first time we see Ava, she is pretty much taking out like entire squad on her motorcycle. So, and well, I mean, I guess it helps that we think she's a man for the first time because the codename Adam and all that. But yes, I think that Quiet's entire character is probably one of the biggest missteps in a saga that is greatly beloved in the series.
And and I think it could have been so much better if she had. I know she talks a couple times, but if she actually had dialogue, there's so much dialogue in that game. It would have been neat to have, especially with some of the ridiculous writing that Kojima games are known for. Why not give her a little bit more dialogue and stuff?
Yeah,
like that?
and it's it's interesting. I think this conversation is going to come up again when Metal Gear Solid 4 gets released. Sorry, I'm assuming that the Master Collection Volume 2 will have Metal Gear Solid 4 in it. Signs are pointing to that, but because you fight the Beauty and the Beasts, and those 4 women all have particular like seductive sub areas for some reason. If you do special,
that's when you go back to Shadow Moses, right? You go back to one of them. You go back to Shadow Moses and fight one of them at one point. I don't know
yes, you do, but you get to have like special like photo shoot sessions with each one of them, and like their designs, story wise have like specific reasons, but I don't know if that's something that like I haven't played it in over 10 years, so I don't know if that's something that's going to be when I play it again, be like, oh,
yeah. So. Yeah. Well, I think I would think we're in agreement then. Not that we were ever disagreeing on anything. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe the important point to make, because I think sometimes people talk past each other with these things, is that I don't think there's nothing wrong with a character and their sexuality being on display or anything like that.
No, not at all.
But I do think at one point it's just like a 12-year-old's version of sexuality. And that's kind of ridiculous.
It's the presentation. It's all in the presentation.
Yeah.
Because we can sit here and talk all day about Baldur's Gate 3.
That's another good example.
Like,
every character in that game is because that's a very sex positive game.
But that's the, I feel, at least from someone outside looking in, the sexuality comes from the personality, not necessarily visuals.
And there's also like to each of those characters has an incredibly they have a lot of dialogue, they have autonomy, and there's for the most part, and they each have something deep about their own story, right? Like Karlak, they each have a trauma. Gale, when you learn why Gale absorbs magical items, it's like there's a story behind that. And there's been conversations about, like with Asterion, for example, who is the guy with white hair. There's conversations about like people who only see him as a sexual object. Yeah. And the writers have said that they wrote certain things into the story to sort of, if you're somebody that only views him from that one dimension, to block that. They kind of want you to. They put traps.
Okay.
If you only view Asterion this way, they put traps in his storyline to sort of have a negative outcome.
Yes.
Of you viewing him from one dimension, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I do remember when the game first came out, that was a running joke, is that everybody was consistently getting shut down by him. So knowing that's quite interesting.
Yeah, but I think that's actually a really good example of Baldur's Gate 3. And none of the characters in Baldur's Gate 3 are like ridiculous in your face all the time. So not
at all.
I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's super pandering or something like that, which I think can dilute character. Okay, are you ready to talk about Nintendo? Tell us about Nintendo.
Nintendo wants a loot box lawsuit to go into arbitration. And here's some more context from Axios. Back in May, and first reported by Stephen Totillo over at Axios, a class action lawsuit filed in California calling for refunds for all miners paid for Mario Kart Tour loot boxes. Mario Kart Tour is a mobile game, of course. Nintendo removed loot boxes from that game in September of 2022. Totillo pointed out that in May, a similar suit was filed against Take-Two. The plaintiffs were represented by the same lawyers as the Nintendo case. Now, an update, once again reported by Totillo. Nintendo is calling for the case to move to arbitration, basically meaning out of public view. Nintendo says the user agreement mandates this. A hearing on the arbitration request is scheduled for December 14th.
Okay, I just want to say that
here we go.
man, no, we ranted about Nintendo yesterday, and I kind of wish we could have Nintendo's, like, all of Nintendo's bullshit on full display, because there's been so much that has gone on this year with that company, and it just bothers the shit out of me, because there's no reason there's no reason that they should be like, I don't understand why there are good Nintendo games, clearly, but I don't understand why there are people that are, like, fans of the company, I guess.
Right.
Because there are good EA games, but there's not a single person out there that's like, hey, I'll defend Electronic Arts for a couple minutes.
No way.
Like, there's nobody.
I just had to bring up Titanfall 2 and it's over.
Is that the way they treated Titanfall 2? Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I don't know. And maybe, like, I think it may stem from, like, youth, because Nintendo does have sort of a more family-friendly veneer that it tries to put out. But even if they don't push mobile games, I think it's not necessarily because they don't believe in it. It's just they don't believe in it as, like, a viable strategy for their brand.
Yeah.
Right? If they did, they would be pushing mobile games as hard as anybody else.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know. I really wish we could see something like that go into the open. When game executives and when higher up management and leadership are forced to talk about these things on the record, they always say something stupid, because the only way to defend these systems is to say something dumb as shit, like saying loot boxes are surprise mechanics, or there's the incredible interview that Wesley Yunpool at Eurogamer did with Chris Bruzzo that I'm still angry about, like 2 years ago, where he defended loot boxes in, like, a number of different ways. And at the end, he just admitted, look, we make money, okay? At the end, he wasn't having it anymore. He's like, look, fuck you, okay? Like, he just didn't care. So it's like, I think when you push these people to give real answers, they can't, because there are none. But when they're able to, like, legally weasel their way out of public view and stuff.
And it's very interesting, because I wonder if there's any more reason to it other than they just don't want their brand to be tainted to the public view. When in reality, like, this, someone who reports on news along with you and someone who reads news every day regarding I completely forgot about this.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
It's such it's not a non-issue, but I mean, from Nintendo's perspective, like, this news isn't going to make or break them.
Yeah.
And hell, even their mistreatment of contracted workers,
Nintendo of
only
America
was a blip, like, compared to the overall.
I had forgotten about that
story.
until you brought it up right now.
So it's very strange, and it's so weird that the entire time you were speaking about Nintendo, when we started the story, in my head I was like, man, you can just replace Nintendo with Disney, and, like, this is all the, like, the people who love the brand will love the things they make more than the company, and they will overlook what the company does because of the content they provide. And it's wild.
And there's nothing wrong with, like, there is nothing wrong with loving Tears of the Kingdom. I love it. It's a great game. It's amazing. I can't wait to get back to playing it once I beat Alan Wake 2.
Yeah, I gotta beat it too. Yeah.
But, like, and I can't wait for the Switch 2. Like, I'm super excited. I hope it's great.
2 screens, baby.
I hope it's the greatest console of all time. I hope everybody in the world owns a Switch 2 in 5 years. But, like, I don't root against or for companies. It was the same thing. I used to have do you know I used to have a sports podcast back in the day?
Yes.
Thank you. No, I used to say this about sports, is, like, the thing that frustrates me the most as a sports fan is just incompetence, and it's people being stupid, and stuff like that. So when it comes to video games, it's like, I am just for competence and good business. But the games industry doesn't want that. It wants all the money in the world, and it's going to roll over it, all the competence it has to get there.
Right.
So it's like I'm not for or anti Nintendo. I am just anti hoarding information. I am anti setting up a bunch of guidelines for your Smash community for no fucking reason. Being overly like protective of your IP, being dogmatic, and then trying to push out this notion that you're like a big family friendly brand while having a problem with contract workers and stuff like that. And so there's nothing wrong with loving Nintendo games. I just don't know why people like love the company, because the company doesn't give a shit about you. If Nintendo could increase their margins by 5% by like pressing a button and making 100 people never be able to play their games ever again, they'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
like, and that's just because that's what companies are.
Yeah.
So I never understand when people go to defend a company, because a company doesn't know you exist and doesn't give a shit about you outside how you appear on a quarterly report. So yeah, I guess that's that. Do you think there's any other company that has sort of like the fandom that Nintendo has at the scale? I'm sure they're like rabid PlayStation fans, but
I mean, the three off the top of my head are Nintendo, Disney, Mac.
Why Mac? That's so weird. Like, again, if you like their products, it's fine, but like, it's a corporation.
Yeah.
It's like liking. It's the same. It has the same substance of enjoying a word. Purgatory. I'm a fan of the word. It's like, why? It's a word. It doesn't exist outside of us saying it.
Anything else? Like, I mean, there are any other company. I think of a lot of other companies. I think of. Starbucks is another one, I guess. Other companies I could think of all have very, very large complaints against it. Like, I mean, we're now climbing out of the hole that is Microsoft, like regarding Xbox, you know. Yeah. I hope, because for since the launch of the Series X, it's been rough for them.
Yeah.
Like EA, of course, we could talk crap about EA all day, and the people who play EA games could probably talk crap about the Madden series.
No
about
one defends it.
Yeah, no one.
No one that plays Madden enjoys it. No, everybody hates that game every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very.
We don't want bomb threats, so sorry if we make you angry, but I mean, come on, it's just a corporation. You didn't have any tidbits?
I didn't. I'm sorry.
No?
Yeah, no. It's been a.
We already played the sounder, so I'm not going to play it twice.
Let's see. Can I find something?
I'll play the sounder, and I'll give you some time to find something.
Probably won't.
I pressed the button.
I told you, in this world,
this is the result
there are
tids. Everybody.
There are tids.
Is it supposed
and
to be?
Richard is the only man put them together.
Oh, okay.
Into tids.
It's like, wait a minute.
Is our computer having an aneurysm?
Maybe I am in Twilight Zone.
that did happen to sound more like
Nintendo did release the prices for their Black Friday sales.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Anything noteworthy there? No.
I mean, good games, but they're still nothing under $30. So.
Hey, nice. Did I ever tell you? Nintendo like never has sales like in stores almost.
No,
at least
never.
That's the way I perceive it.
Yeah, never.
Absolutely never. But the one time, maybe this may have been like a Target deal or something. I don't know. But my wife and I, a couple of years ago, we were like, let's go buy a Switch. We always wanted one. It was like 2 years after it came out. Let's go get it. We went to Target to get one, and on that day, they were having like a buy a Switch and get 2 games free.
Hell yeah.
Like, what? Hell yeah. Or something, or like 2 games, 50%, some great deal like that. And I remember the guy saying that it was a Nintendo deal. It wasn't like a Target deal.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
But it may have been a Target thing, because Target has deals on games like all the time.
Target does. They have a buy one get one going on right now, I think. Or buy 2 get one, or buy 1 get one right now going on.
Yeah, like every couple months they have a deal like that.
Yeah. And
but
that's a Target thing. That's not,
Yeah. So anyway, okay. Follow us.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Did you have something else?
Lightning McQueen is coming to Rocket League. Let's go.
Is it gonna be Owen Wilson though? That's the thing.
I hope so.
And every time you jump, instead of a jump, it's oh wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Ka-chow. Phil Spencer reveals his love for the Asus ROG Ally.
Oh, okay. Well, we know this.
Yeah, I mean he likes video games.
Phil Spencer he's a platform agnostic.
Yeah.
In the words of Crosby, Stills, and Nash, if you can't be with the one you love the one you with. And that's Phil Spencer. If you can't play the one you love, play the one you're with. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gaming Discourse, patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse, Gaming Discourse FM. And we'll have an update about projects this Wednesday or Thursday on Patreon. So go check that out. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.